Hello listeners, it's your host Craig coming to you from the future. Just to let you know that this episode was actually recorded a few weeks ago, but I haven't been able to get it out until now because I was flat out with the Edinburgh International Film Festival. This has caused some of the discussion points to be a little out of date. For example, we talk about the fate of Timeless being undecided, but it's now been cancelled. Other than some out of date information, I can assure you that you're in for a treat.
Hiya, my name is Freya Maver. I've been in things such as Skins, Sense of an Ending, La Dame dans l'Auto, and more recently Dead in a Week or Your Money Back. And you are listening to Kneel Before Pod.
Kneel Before Blog presents Kneel Before Pod.
When I was a child, my planet Krypton was dying. Okay, not really, but my parents named me Craig Mackenzie, and I was put on this earth to consume nerdy content. The problem is, there's just so much. So I did my best, until recently, when a website allowed me to force myself upon the world. To most people, I'm a giant nerd who watches too much TV, but in secret, I'm an even bigger nerd who watches even more TV. I do this to talk about it and protect the masses from potentially bad content. This is Kneel Before Pod. And coming live from a previously undiscovered chunk of my home planet, it's Chris.
Hello.
It's always handy when you see these chunks of your home planet just flying around. It's really useful.
I know. I mean, I feel like I really should have made it obvious where I was sooner, but, you know, I thought it was more convenient being undiscovered under my dome.
Just wait, a couple of decades. It's fine.
Yes.
Yeah, it's not even a couple of decades. I don't know how long it is. But we're starting to verge into spoiler territory here. People have no idea what we're talking about. Yeah. So we are here to talk about Supergirl Season 3 from Episode 10 onwards. Because it's been a long time since we did the first half of the season, actually. There was that super long Legends hiatus, and then the rest of the season, so it's weird. It's just, we probably should have done one after it went on hiatus again, but never mind.
It's back for one episode thing, yeah.
Yeah, it's back for a couple of weeks, and then it's off again.
A mid-season podcast.
Yeah. A hiatus podcast. Stick to the hiatus.
Alright.
Yeah. So, before we begin, hit new feature, Kneel Before Rise Against, where we scour the internet for good and bad stuff that's been happening in the world of geekery over the past however long it's been since the last podcast. So, Chris, do you want to kick us off with your Kneel Before?
I will kneel before a biopic of Marvin Gaye that is moving forward with Dr. Dre, who has stepped in to produce it.
When you say stepped in, is he filling shoes?
Yeah, well, it's been around for a little bit, but he's now picked up the rights to it. So it's sort of shuffling forward very, very slowly. So he did the biopic straight out of Compton in sort of 2015. So now he's pushing on to do a film about Motown legend Marvin Gaye.
Wow. Could be interesting.
Could be.
If you like that sort of stuff.
Could be. I mean, some of these biopic films have actually been quite good. I know we've got the one about Freddie Mercury coming out soon. I've sort of seen trailers and bits for that has potential. These films either seem to go one way in the extreme or the other way in the extreme. There never seems to be happy middle ground. Sort of that was okay. It's either everyone hates it or everyone loves it. So we will see.
My issue with biopics is they often just try to tell someone's entire life in like 2 hours, which is just not possible. You don't have anything more than just little vignettes telling you little parts of something, and there's no real impact to it because it's like, we'll do this and then we'll skip ahead in our 5 years to where something else significant happened. You don't have time to just drink in the moment. I find that the best biopics are about a specific period in someone's life.
Mm-hmm.
The Queen one, I believe, is about the creation of Bohemian Rhapsody. So it's not about just Freddie Mercury in his entire life.
Yeah, it's got little flashes and then it takes you up to a particular event, yeah. I mean, some of those ones have been good. I mean, I really enjoyed Ray, about Ray Charles. Now, it didn't do his entire life story, but it did a large chunk of it. Same with Walk the Line, which was quite good as well, though it didn't sort of focus on the whole thing. It sort of took little chunks out. So, some of these things can work, some of them can, but I agree with you. I think trying to hit every event in someone's life is impossible because there's bits that you just can't do justice to.
I remember I had the pleasure of listening to a live Q&A with Stanley Tucci, and he was talking about biopics, and he was trying to get a particular one off the ground. I can't remember what it was, but he was talking about there is no story to someone's entire life. That's just, or the story is just that. And it's more like and then it happened, and then that happened, and then this happens. But if you can drill into the detail of a particular moment, some significant period over a couple of years or a couple of months or even just a week, it depends how significant someone's life was. And certainly to my mind, the better biopics are the ones that are more contained, where you've got this very tiny moment. Because you can get a sense of who the person was from that definitive moment as well. Jackie springs to mind.
Yes, actually, that was one I was about to raise, is that, it's a very specific period in someone's life. Yeah, and it's, this defines her. So you get a sense of what she is from then on, and a bit about her before that as well, from the murder of her husband, because that was just something that grew to define her in the public eye and in her own life and things. So I think it's much better to keep the focus. So is there any news on this Marvin Gaye one, what it's going to do, what it's focusing on? I mean, I don't know much about the guy's life, to be perfectly honest. Neither do I, which is what might make it interesting. And, Dr. J is producing. What kind of slant that'll end up having on it, I'm not too sure. I mean, I've been out to Detroit. I've been in the Motown studio and stuff. So Motown's something that definitely interests me. So it sounds like this is right up my alley. So it'll be potentially interesting. But those are the sort of limited details that I have at the moment.
Well, you're looking forward to it, so that's good.
Yeah.
Justifiable. So for my Kneel Before, I won't be surprised if you already know what it's going to be.
I can take a guess.
But I'm going to say it anyway, because maybe, in fact, anybody who's listened to them before, any podcast in the past month or two, will know what this was about. So we'll know that Lucifer was sadly cancelled, and I was really bitter about it and really upset. But it's back.
Hey.
Netflix has stepped in and saved it.
Woo!
And I was reading a bit more about it today, as it happens. It has been renewed for a 10-episode fourth season. Netflix are going to produce it, but like the entire production team that currently exists are just going to pick up where they left off and do stuff. Apparently for season 4, they're going to treat it as a half season. So they already planned for season 4 to be 2 parts anyway. So what they're hoping for is a season 5, so we could have this crap to deal with again in about a year's time. Mm-hmm. But so they're doing the 10 episodes, and then there'll be some kind of a break, and maybe it'll come back for season 5 where they tell the other half of the story. So they have it planned out, they're compensating for it. Still unknown whether it will be chuck 10 episodes at us at once, or do it once a week. I kind of hope for the once a week, because that's how the show has thrived prior to this. But who knows? But it's back, and I'm excited.
Hey, well, that's great. I mean, I know you were very jealous when The Expanse got renewed, so I'm happy for you. So that's almost your full set back now, isn't it?
I know. It's like I said, nothing got cancelled this year. I didn't say this on a podcast, but it sounds like nothing got cancelled this year. I suppose a few things did, but nothing I watch. Timeless is still in the bubble. They haven't announced anything yet for Timeless. I haven't seen season 2 yet, though, so, if that goes, I won't shed any tears, really. But yes, everything's back. That's good. All my shows, all my stories. So my workload doesn't reduce. Unless they chuck it at me at 10 episode chunk, because that I will struggle to cope with.
Well, all at once.
Yeah.
We just need to do a binge review at the end.
Yeah. Perhaps. I'm seeing on Twitter that Shadowhunters has not been renewed yet, but I've never watched that. So, but if you're a Shadowhunters fan, fingers crossed for you that you get your show back. So that's that. So what are you rising against this week?
I am going to rise against something that could go either way, to be honest, but, the gods of this podcast demand a sacrifice every week in the Rise Against feature, so the sacrificial lamb on this particular podcast is Will Ferrell is to star in a new film based on Eurovision, on the Eurovision Song Contest. Now, I know that there will be people out there that don't know anything about the Eurovision Song Contest, but if you are a UK-based or a European country-based listener to this podcast,
or
you will know
Australian
far too much. Or Australian, yeah.
Or an Israelite, or the other countries that aren't in Europe that are somehow
That's true, that somehow know about this thing. It's somehow spread. You will know what Eurovision is. So he is going to star in this film. It's going to be on Netflix. And it is going to be called, get this, very imaginatively titled, Eurovision.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
So what is this film about, do you know?
So it will be a sort of... I don't really know about it. Apparently it's not written yet. So he's set to write it with the former head writer of Saturday Night Live, a guy called Andrew Steele. He was filmed at this year's contest, and apparently that's when he got permission to go ahead with the film. So he's sort of seen different stages of the competition and what takes place, presumably as research. I mean, don't get me wrong, this sounds like it's ripe for comedy, but at the same time, it has the potential to be absolutely awful. And like I say, I've got to have a sacrificial lamb. Therefore, the Eurovision film is getting thrown there. I think actual Eurovision can be absolutely horrific to watch. Watching fake Eurovision has the potential to be just as awful.
What are you talking about? Eurovision's great fun. You get a few people, a few beers. It's good fun. I think it's... I mean, I know there will be people that I'm about to offend by saying this, but, you know, I feel like it is kind of sad if you watch it on your own, because it is much shared as a mocking communal activity rather than sitting, I'm going to seriously watch this song contest.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that's the British way of watching it, is you watch it in groups so you can mock contestants, including our own. Especially our own, that just gets absolutely, yeah.
We're equal opportunity savages, so it's fine. No one is exempt. Yeah, I'm kind of bored with the Will Ferrell shtick, so I'm inclined to agree that this will be potentially not that great. But I don't know, we'll see. I'll probably watch it because I like Eurovision. Unashamedly, unironically enjoy Eurovision. Well, it's kind of ironic because I do slag it. But, you know, it is an annual event that I do look forward to. So there. There's a bit of insight into my sad life on this very podcast. For my Rise Against, I'm going to stay in topic kind of with what the subject of this particular episode is. They have announced that Ralph Dibny will be full-time cast member on The Flash next season. And my reaction to that when I read it was just...
It wasn't sort of screaming at the sky and yelling no for like
No.
an overly dramatic time in the rain with like thunder going off in the background.
It was just a passively defeated grunt. Just, no, not this again. I have no problem with Hartley Sawyer. I think he probably does a good enough job with what he's given. It's what he's given I have a problem with. I just find the character really annoying and really repetitive, and I just don't want to see a full season of him, because we already had a bloody full season of him near enough. So another more of him being him is just going to be insufferable.
Yes, incoherent Dibny developments. Yeah.
And it's just it's a show that I struggle to watch at the best of times, and it feels like the best of times are just being eroded away. Just, we're going to take everything good about this show and just get rid of it. You know, we'll just produce crap on a weekly basis now. That's what we're doing. That's our mission statement. Although it's not the only cast change. I mean, I'm not rising against these particular ones. Cecile will also be a full-time cast member. Not that I really have an issue with that. I'm just wondering why. What has she got to give the show? She's just there. doesn't really do anything. You know, she doesn't have a purpose. She doesn't have a place. They still struggle to find stuff for Caitlin to do, so chiming in with another character is probably not a great idea.
Especially full time, yeah.
Yeah. And I'm not going to spoil who it is in case you haven't seen it or haven't listened to our Flash podcast, but the mysterious character played by Jessica Parker Kennedy will be full time on the show as well, which I don't have a problem with because she is she's good. She has good energy. I think she'll mix things up a little bit. Maybe she'll counter the Ralphness, or maybe she'll just become really annoying in large doses. Who knows?
Yeah, I think it's a wait and see kind of thing, but Flash has been disappointing for about 2 seasons on the bounce for me. So
that's it.
Yeah, it's one of those ones where it's going to have to try hard, I think, for me. But they've kind of got me hooked because of the fact that they do the crossovers, and you always feel that you're missing something out if you don't then watch them.
That's why we're here. That's why we're stuck. I wonder if that's why a lot of the audience is watching it. They're just like, well, I might miss something in Arrow. There might be a reference that doesn't make sense if I don't, or what if I get to the crossover and I don't know what the Flash characters are doing.
I do think there is an element of that geeky version of fear of missing out.
Yeah.
I don't want to miss a sort of funny side gag in this particular episode because I don't watch this TV show.
Yeah. Damn us, nerds. We're our own worst enemies. Okay, on to the main event then.
I suppose so.
Supergirl Season 3, Part 2 and 3, I suppose, because it was split into 3 parts, sort of. Without spoiling it, what did you think of... We'll just go with, what did you think of the season as a whole? I mean, I know that's a loaded question.
Yeah, it's a loaded question, pre-spoiler area, but it was okay. It was okay. It had some elements that I really liked. It had some other bits I just went a bit... I did not find this appointment viewing this season. Supergirl was one of the ones that when I had a backlog of TV shows to try and get through, it wasn't the one that I was reaching to go, oh, I wonder what happens next, or I'm desperate to find out what happens next. It was one that was like, oh, I can get round to that after I've watched this. And I've done catch-ups and sort of little fits and starts rather than sort of appointment viewing every week.
Yeah, fair. I was kind of mixed on it. I think they were doing some things really well for a while, and then I thought the last few episodes were just... I'm not going to say Flash levels of bad, but they were bad. I think they lost the plot and forgot to focus on certain... forgot to focus on their characters, so everything that was happening was more plot-driven, and there was a lot of big things happening, or what should have been big things, but it's kind of... I don't know, they find a way to make these world-altering or life-altering events feel like just another day at the office. And that's really jarring because if you don't have the emotional impact, then what do you have? It's just nonsense happening in front of you all the time. So it's difficult to remain invested when, the characters don't seem invested because they're too busy moving on to the next thing.
Yeah, there was a bit of that, especially towards the latter few episodes where major decisions and major plot points and character development seemed to be happening in sort of a single scene and then completely dropped in following scenes. It just wasn't wasn't very well handled.
Yeah. So shall we move to the floating spoiler city?
Let's fly into the floating spoiler city. Let's go for it.
Let's do that. So we'll kind of start with story as we always do. I mean, we'll feed the characters in because the story should be about the characters. When we last left Supergirl on our last discussion, she was brutally beaten by rain and put into a coma. So the first episode following that Christmas break picks up with her in a coma. She's sort of in her little mind palace, mind apartment thing, stuck in there trying to heal and try to escape. And she's visited by Brainiac 5, also known as Brainy, who tries to convince her to kind of find a way out. I thought that episode was pretty good, actually. I mean, you've got the whole Kara struggling with her identity arc that's been kicking about all season. You've got she lost Manel and then got him back, and didn't get him back because he was there and he was married and stuff. So she's kind of retreated into herself, and she assumes that the Supergirl side of things defines her identity when it doesn't, because it isn't until she embraces the Kara Danvers side that she's able to escape. You know, it's the glasses appear and then there's a key. I thought it was quite interesting. I like Brainy. I think he's quite manic and fun.
Yeah, I think he's been all right. I mean, a couple of the sort of getting film references, gags and stuff were played a bit too often sometimes. You know, he would get one thing, but then he wouldn't get another, which was a bit sort of one way and then the other. But yeah, as a character overall, I thought he was actually all right as an introduction. And I'm assuming from what we've seen in the finale, he will be sticking about for a bit potentially.
Yeah, he'll be replacing Wynn full time. So I don't have a problem with that. I think he's good for the show. I'm also I'm kind of disappointed that they came up with an excuse to get rid of his blueness. So, you know, I get that the actor has to sit in hours and hours of makeup, but it's really weird that he's sitting in hours upon hours of makeup for a single minute, or I think it's 20 seconds of the episode before reverting back, you know. So I kind of have issues with that. I think that if a character looks different, they should be allowed to continue to look different, because otherwise you're just homogenising them and, you know, making them just look the same as everyone else, which kind of flies in the face of their whole inclusion message that they keep trying to send.
It does a little bit, actually, yeah. I didn't really read it as that much. I more saw it as this actor really doesn't want to be sitting in makeup every day for that particular length of time, but yeah, potentially that. It does kind of send out a bit of a negative message that way.
Yeah, it's like, we would never accept the real you in our society. I mean, it is a bit of a commentary on, as they do with many things, they make a bit of a commentary on the modern world and the way things play out there. You know, the persecution that people of colour in particular, for this show anyway, because of James, they've mentioned that a few times. You had that moving speech he made about being arrested at 14 and or it was 9, wasn't it? It was something like
it was 9 outside the hotel. Yeah,
and they put the handcuffs around his forearms because he was so small, and so they've kind of hit on the race relation thing a little bit, and obviously the fact that Jean takes on the guise of a black man, and he does so deliberately because he doesn't want to conform to what the world wants him to be, and that's all interesting stuff. And I think that arc could extend to Brainy as well. You know, maybe next season it is about him. I'm just going to go out in public looking like this. You know, people know aliens exist. They'll just have to deal with me.
Yeah, it potentially will, actually. Or there'll be the realisation that, you know, when he doesn't have his... I was going to say, like, a cloaking mechanism on, but I don't know what to call it. They do have a name for it in the show, and I can't remember what it's called. It's like a diffraction thing or whatever. I can't remember what it's called. Yeah. Camouflage type device. You know, you're going to end up having that malfunctioning in public or something, I imagine. Yeah. And then it'll be the realisation that, yeah, that he isn't maybe as accepted as he should be.
Yeah, and whether that'll bother him or not, because you haven't really seen him display human emotion as such. You've seen him kind of try to understand it. So you've got the bit where Monel seems upset and he's like, oh, this is one of those points where you might need a hot beverage or something like that. You know, it's as if Sheldon was an alien. Or it's as if Sheldon was an alien, right?
More of an alien.
More of an alien than he currently is. Yeah. It's that kind of thing where it's he is quite distanced from humanity because he doesn't quite understand it quite yet. But he's getting there, or he will get there. I think it's such a short arc in this season that there isn't really enough time to give him that much of an identity. But I think they must have responded well to fan feedback on him. Everybody loved him, or at least that was the impression I was getting on Twitter. Jesse Rath's portrayal of him was celebrated, and they must have thought, we'll need to get him on board full time if we can.
Well, I think if they've known that they were aiming for a replacement win for a while, then they've probably been running through a couple of options, and if they've hit across a character that can do the same job and is liked by the fans, then, you know, they've sort of struck gold in that way.
Yeah.
Instead of having to sort of start the new season and go, here's another tech person that we didn't really mention before. They kind of worked in the basement, but now they're going to be here and they're going to be your best pal. So on you go.
Yeah, well, you almost had that other replacement Wynn who was kicking about in the background sometimes, who unfortunately died. Death by heat vision that gets through a force field.
Yeah, it's like, we've got to decide who's going to replace Wynn. This guy is proving too useful in the background. Do you think the fans are gonna grow to attach him? No. Okay, we'll kill him off and we'll replace him with this one.
Yeah. With Wynn's departure, actually, I kind of have an issue with that because, I mean, I get it if Jeremy Jordan wants to move on and do different things and cut back his time. I mean, reading between the lines, it suggests to me that he doesn't really get enough to do on the show and wants to maybe do his cabaret-type touring stuff because that's, something that's important to him, and fair play to him if that's what he wants. But Wynn is a character who has more potential than most of the others. There's so much you could do with him, and they started to tease that this season when, with his fractured relationship with his mother that I found really interesting. And the idea that he was kind of the way his parent thing played out kind of knocked his confidence because he felt unwanted by his mother, and obviously his dad was an evil supervillain. And after he kind of repaired that relationship with his mother, he gets that confidence, he gets that drive, he gets that ambition. And it's when he's at death's door, he says, I could have been, the next Steve Jobs or Elon Musk or whoever else. He kind of believes that, I am potentially that good, and now if I die, I'll never get that. So being in the future, he learns that his designs are celebrated for 1,000 years, apparently. And that gives him the kind of impetus he needs to find a new direction in life.
That does lead me to questions about time travel and such, but I will raise that in a second. I want to agree with you. First of all, I think some of the bits that they've given this character to do, the relationship with his mum, the backstory with his dad, have all been really interesting, well portrayed on screen. The fact that he was sitting there going, do you know, I create all this technology that no one's going to get to see because I'm working for a secret organisation, when actually, if I was to go out and apply this in the real world, I could make a proper difference and I could have a lasting legacy. And he realises that on death's door, and then he starts working on all this stuff. I think there could have been some really interesting developments there. Yeah. Now, my question then comes round to how time travel works in this particular universe, because you're taking an inventor who apparently goes on to invent great, 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 great things, unless he only invented that one great thing and then left, who you've now plucked from his timeline and taken to the future.
Well, the suggestion is that it's not permanent.
I would assume so, and he could just pop back in 5 minutes' time and go, that was easy to fix.
Yeah. Well, Brainy does say it's dangerous for AI, so he has to stay in the present, and Wynn's genius is needed in the future to solve that problem so that Brainy can go back. So in theory, if Wynn solves that problem, then he can come back and, resume his life as normal and, I don't know, maybe start his own company or whatever. I don't know. I do think he has a lot more potential than has been explored. And it's almost every episode where you're like, oh look, there's Wynn. He's sitting there at the computer again, typing stuff. And that's about all he did in most episodes.
And he hasn't been given a lot of relationship work with the other characters either. Even the ones that he works with and interacts with, he's become more of a generic guy in chair role than the sort of key family member almost, is what I want to put in there, rather than just going friend. He's been sort of a part of the extended family in there for a bit. So you didn't really get that feeling over recent episodes especially. He's just kind of been there in the office on the mic going, oh, that person's over there right now, or I'm detecting the widget in this particular place, so, go fetch.
Yeah, well, he and Alex had kind of banter back and forth, and I can't remember any meaningful scene he had with Kara in a long time.
He had a few scenes with James, a few good scenes with James, but not really many with Kara.
Yeah, and then she was his best friend and vice versa in season 1. As Kara says when he's leaving, you were the first person I told I was Supergirl. you made my costume. It's like, you're telling me that this person is important to you, but then the show has never given us that, not for a long time. You know, it's annoying that he's just sort of part of the furniture, because I really like him. And I actually hated him in season 1, because he was just, or at least early season 1, because he was just really insufferable. Like, I remember one of the first things he said was, when Kara was telling him her secret, he thought she meant that she was gay. And he was like, oh, so that's why you're not into me, because you're gay. And, what? Like, or she might not be into you because you're like a slimy self-obsessed man baby. I don't know.
Yeah, they kind of got rid of his pervy nature, I think, partway through season 1, didn't they? Where it was like he was trying to hit on anything with 2 legs.
Called Kara.
Yeah, called Kara. You know, there was elements of that just that got unwritten, thankfully, and I think they did, you know, pretty good improvements with the character, definitely in sort of season 2. And then this recent season, he's just not had that much to work with. There's elements that have been there, but you know, he's not been given tons overall. Yeah,
it's weird. But he's always there to, you know, turn the screw, fix the thing, read things off a screen. Watch out for this thing; it's dangerous. You know,
move from the computer with the useful keyboard over to the iPad with the not quite as useful keyboard. You know, all that.
That makes a noise every time you touch it.
That's one.
Yeah, that would be really annoying. It would drive you mad. It's what I always felt if, like, I was working on the USS Enterprise. You know, every button you press makes a beep. I'm insane. I can't deal with all these beeps.
Like constantly working with a microwave.
Pretty much, yeah. Maybe in the future they're just used to it, but I don't know. It's just technology in these things is pretty ridiculous, and you know, as is science, such as the boy-killing sun. This sun will kill any male of any species, apparently.
Yeah, that was very strange. That I got that. It sort of went, it means that we can do girls going out and getting them episode. But yeah, it was a very roundabout, sciencey way of doing it.
Yeah. And the team that she picked, I mean, you had Livewire, you had Sai, and was that... Oh, Imra. She was on the ship as well.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just another excuse to have Kara without powers. I mean, how often do they yank that chain? You know, like, so many times where it's, I'm going to go into this weird alternate universe / Mind Valley place. I won't have powers there. Oh, there's a random eclipse. No powers. I'll go to this male killing sun. No powers there either. You know, but the eclipse was especially weird. The reason being is because certainly the comics, and I believe it's been mentioned in Supergirl before as well, that Kryptonians are like batteries. So whenever they're exposed to a yellow sun, they charge it up. You know, they charge up like a battery. So they have, you know, as long as they replenish their powers well, regularly enough, they won't get weak. That's why they don't lose their powers at night, for example.
Yes.
You know, because they've charged up during the day. But as soon as the eclipse hits, she is without power. So that makes no sense.
Batman v Superman would have been very different if Kryptonians lost their powers at night, wouldn't it? That would have been
yeah, well, you never see them during the day, so... But by that logic, every time that the sun goes down, she should lose her powers, and that just doesn't happen. So it's just a ridiculous contrivance to be like, I don't know, we can't afford Supergirl visual effects this episode, so we'll just have her running around, still in costume, but with no powers.
I think it's the issue of trying to raise the stakes without having an onslaught of Kryptonians, which they still fall into in this season. You know, it's very difficult with someone as powerful as Supergirl or Superman or any of these characters, really, and I've mentioned it in several of the other podcasts. When you get all these superpowered individuals into one room, you've then got to find a way of making the situation dangerous for them. Otherwise, there's no threat for the viewer when they're sitting there like, oh, well, they're definitely going to survive this. I mean, but the thing is, overall, you're like, well, the show's titled after her. I doubt she dies in episode 2.
Yeah.
You know, it's one of those. It's like, damned if they do, damned if they don't. So a lot of the time, they've got to go into the situation, right, how can we depower her this week? We will use the kryptonite cannon or an eclipse, or we will create some form of weird, wacky sun that depowers her but keeps other people running, you know?
Yeah, although Supergirl has always done pretty well with the whole power level thing because, you know, she is always fighting people that can take her. So the fact that you've got Rain and the other world killers, they are, you know, they're a match, if not better than her, in terms of a physical confrontation. So you don't need to have this depowering every week. You know, and the thing is, when you get to, when they went to Fort Ross, she didn't have her powers, but Rain still did. So I guess the idea is, oh my god, Kara is even more screwed than she would have been before. But at the same time, she's, you know, she would be equally in danger if she had her powers. Especially when there was, like, the other Kryptonian on there, you know, the Kryptonian, whatever it was, the priestess or whoever she was. I don't remember that episode that well. I mean, I remember, like, the whole point of it was for Kara to talk to women that aren't in her life very often about her problems, and you know, and I think Livewire is always a good foil for her because she just tells it like, or not quite like it is, but how she sees it. So she's like blunt. So she, you know, she was almost a supportive best friend when it came to the Mon-El Imra situation. She was like oh yeah, I totally hate that bitch. You know, there was a couple of scenes like that where she was like, yeah, I really hate that the future might just have women who look like that. You know, she's too attractive. You can't be having this. What a horrible future this must be. Where are all the ordinary women? But it's a CW show as well, so like that, God knows. You know, they're all unspeakably attractive. I wonder if that's like in the small print of the casting sheets. It's like looking for Caucasian female aged whatever to whatever, must be attractive. I don't know, but that, I thought that was a good episode in that sense. You know, they had the Suicide Squad angle. You know, the Kara putting together her female Suicide Squad.
Yeah, people who are dispensable and who will not be missed as I take them away. Yeah, and will still be useful to me when I do take them.
And I like to begrudging respect that happened at the end when Kara said to Sai, you can have a window. Give her a cell with a window.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a bit of movement. I don't know. I don't know what potential these characters have in the future, but they were okay. And Livewire is now dead, I think. So that's a shame. She was a good recurring menace for Kara, I think. It seems to have fallen by the wayside, but she's now apparently dead. If such people can be dead. No one dies in the show anyway, as we will come on to eventually. So we had two other world killers that were out there. The first one we saw was Julia. I think her civilian name was.
Yes.
And they went down the route of, she isn't intrinsically evil. She's overpowered by this possessing entity, I suppose. I mean, once again, the physics are ridiculous. The whole, when you become Rain, or when you become, what's that one?
Pestilence.
No, she wasn't Pestilence, she was something else. Purity.
There you go.
So when you become Rain and when you become Purity, your DNA is temporarily rewritten until you turn back. It's like, that's not how DNA works. You can't just change it and change it back. That's nah. Like, yeah, your cells are 100% human now, forever. Apparently, what?
Well, thank God for that. And you know, I would have thought there would have been some change there, but no, 100% me. Okay, cool.
Yeah, it's like.
To be fair, they were showing 100% you before, and we didn't spot it. So yeah.
But it's because your DNA is just getting rewritten and rewritten back. And I seem to remember in the Flash season 1 when Barry lost his powers, where it was like, your DNA has changed, it can't just change back. You know, like when he became the Flash, his DNA changed fundamentally. So like he always had that potential within him. He could maybe lose his speed, but he would always be a Speed Force conduit. because of just what happened to his DNA after the accident. So I find myself a bit confused by that, but whatever. It's just nonsense science. You know, they do mention Kryptonian dark magic in this season quite casually. It's like, what's causing this eclipse? Kryptonian dark magic. It's like, well, that clears that up.
Thank God, yeah. I thought you were going to come up with a science explanation. Kryptonian dark magic sounds quite plausible now in this situation.
So
I would love for there to be a comic science convention, like made-up science convention. I think that would work. If no one's done that already, I'm sure there will be one somewhere.
Yeah. Question is that eclipse? And have they physically moved the moon, or is it some kind of hologram?
An artificial eclipse? How do you do an artificial eclipse?
Well, I suppose you would get a hologram of the moon that sits between National City and the sun. It'd be like it would need to be like a solid hologram, because the sun would still penetrate it, because you've got to block the actual rays and the radiation coming through, which is what actually... Yeah, dark magic. It's a dark
magic. Yeah, let's just leave it as dark magic and move along. Yeah, there's nothing to see here.
It'd be like Mr. Burns' sun blotting out device. It just moves, it just keeps moving as the Earth moves, to keep the sun blocked out. They've moved into the realm of dark magic, so whatever. It's all just nonsense at this point. But back to my original point, purity. So Julia was fighting against being purity. You had that. There was one of the stronger episodes of the season, actually, where she was just flipping between the two, and whenever purity was in charge, she was this kind of manic, manipulative, just kind of crawlingly evil persona. And then you had the flip side of that was the Julia persona, who was, very kind and sweet and put upon. And you had her sacrifice herself twice, once in that episode to save Kara by giving herself over to Rain, and then the second time was when she died. But that was really cool. I really liked that angle, and it very much fed into the Kara, I'm going to defeat the world killers by saving them, by appealing to the human half of them. That's like how I'll win. And whether that's misguided or not is up for debate, but it makes sense for her to want to save them, really, rather than just beat everyone up. And I like that approach. I do very much like and appreciate the whole, I'm not convinced that everyone's intrinsically evil. I want to help them rather than kill them or destroy them or defeat them.
It makes it more difficult to fight them, knowing that there's an innocent person on the inside. It adds that extra layer. I liked the aspect of this where they were all fighting against their alter ego. So, Sam didn't want to be Rain, Julia didn't want to be Purity. It was almost a sort of horror element to it. You're transforming to this person and you've got no control over it whatsoever. You just wake up and you've got no recollection of what you've done in the meantime. So I liked the way they handled that. I thought Julia was, like you say, it was quite a nice foil. You've got this really sweet person who sort of sacrifices herself in the end, and then, and even once Supergirl gets in there and manages to basically convince her to fight back, to regain control, like you say, she sacrifices herself again.
Yeah. The exception to that is Pestilence, or Grace, who's completely given herself over to this evil side of her. She's like, I'm fine with this. I'm going to use this disease to kill, corrupt bankers and all this kind of stuff. And it's very much the ragging against the 1% that Supergirl enjoys doing as a show. It's just one of those things. But it's not a point it labours too heavily. But I like the idea that, I just gave into this temptation a long time ago, and you see the representation of, in this weird valley place, of just Grace dead on the floor because the human side of her has been killed and can't be reasoned with. And that does force Kara to think about things a bit differently, because she is unable to save Pestilence. It can't happen. It's impossible. There is no good to appeal to at that stage. Although the way they deal with the two world killers after spending so long introducing them is a bit weak. Having them dealt with in a single action sequence.
Yeah, it was a kind of one action sequence, and then they're all merged into one even bigger foe again.
Yeah.
Who you then need to defeat. So yeah, it was a bit rapid in its dismantling.
Well, I mean, if the whole point was to have the three world killers pave the way for a more powerful Reign that had the powers of all three, fair enough. But I think they should have spent more time having the three world killers to establish that as a threat that's very difficult to defeat. And then, rather than the quite easy fight that they all have at that point, where, you know, it does end in a massive victory, and, you know, the fortress is destroyed, 2 out of 3 world killers are dead. Reign is, I think, captured at the end of that one, isn't she?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Yeah, so it's like, it's all looking good for Team Supergirl, and obviously it's supposed to build to the Reign is actually more dangerous than all of the... She's more dangerous because she's now all of them combined. And, oh, by the way, the future's fixed now. There is no blight, and I kept thinking to myself, surely Reign getting all those powers, that is what causes the blight. It has to be.
Well, there was part of me thinking, like, well, if they don't cure her and she breaks out, she can still cause the blight.
Yeah.
And because, you know, and I think what they came up with was the fact that the blight was able to mutate as well.
Yeah.
You know, they could kind of change it. Now, the fact that it was then merged in with Sam would then mean it was a completely different strain that would break out.
Yeah. Well, I was kind of buying into the idea that that Imra and Mon-El and Brainy were the cause of the thing they were trying to prevent.
Mm.
You know, I thought that was the route they were going to go down. So I thought they would maybe go back to the future, and then Imra and Brainy would come back and be like, "Jeez, did we screw up?
We have made things a lot worse." Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, turns out that's how the blight's caused. We're back to help you defeat Reign, and that's cool. And then Imra says, "I think there's a love triangle I need to participate in, so I'm here for that too." I actually appreciated that they didn't lean into the love triangle side of it, but what they replaced it with wasn't anything interesting either. You know, you had the bit where Imra says to Mon-El, "I'm going to go off to the future, you stay here, you figure things out, and I'll go along with whatever you say. So if you decide that Kara's the one for you, this marriage is over, all questions no more questions asked, we're fine, I understand that you need to work through this, bye." And then you have a couple of episodes of Mon-El and Kara dancing around each other before nothing happens, really. It makes it feel like the time that they spend together is kind of wasted, and the relationship does feel kind of stilted, and I don't know, I just feel like spending too much time on that relationship, especially with it not going anywhere, takes too much time away from other more interesting connections that Kara could be messing around with.
Yeah, it does. It doesn't really sizzle in the way it did in the previous season at all. And when I say sizzle, I don't think it particularly did in the second season either, to be honest. But, you know, it's one of those ones where their relationship doesn't progress, even when he's given the permission to actively pursue, essentially. Not a particular like wording that I want to use, but I'm trying to think of something better to say. You know, he's being told, if she is the person that you want, then you've got to, you know, if that's your decision, you go for it, kind of thing. And then he doesn't, really. He sort of floats about, not quite committing to either option for the whole time, and she doesn't actively pursue him either. So you end up this weird will they, won't they, but you kind of know, okay, well, it's going to be a they will, because it keeps coming back to that. So it's not like the default option is, okay, they will, but they just keep toying with it a little bit, but it's kind of lost its interest now. Yeah,
and Chris Wood won't be back next season, apparently. He's off. At least not as a main character capacity. He may turn up here and there, but he's gone. So it's weird. I mean, the goodbye they shared in the final episode there was a bit stilted. And, you know, the thing is, whether I was invested in the relationship or not last season, I thought the last scene they shared together in the final episode of season 2 was was quite emotionally charged, and it was well acted between the two of them. And then this one, we'll talk a bit about Greek myths, not really understanding that myth at all. What was it, the myth of Persephone, who is only stuck in the underworld for most of the year. That's why we have winter. Never mind. They just don't understand. It's fine. But they rabbit on about that, and Monel is like, I just need to go back to my future. Oh, and by the way, my relationship or my marriage to Imra is dissolved, because she's like, it's fine, I've realised it wasn't really for me anyway. So what, they're just going to be like ex-husband and ex-wife on on the Legion team now. I feel like it was very odd. And I also feel like something changed between the first half of the season and the second half of the season, because in the first half they were very coupley. You would see them, they would go out and they would eat chicken wings and, enjoy the past and whatever else. And then after that, there was a much more stilty business arrangement-y type connection between them. So I wonder if I don't know, I wonder if someone on high decided, let's get rid of this love triangle connection thing, and let's really play up the arranged marriage side of it that neither of them really wanted to be a part of. Yeah,
it does seem like there was kind of a flicking of a switch part way through. It wasn't like a gradual transition. It was more like this is not a thing anymore, and we're not gonna go for it. I don't know. It's one of those things. I think it's a bit of a shame if he's not going to be coming back. I don't think the character was particularly terrible in any way, but we'll wait and see what actually happens.
I, for one, won't miss him, to be honest. I think that he was interesting enough in season 2 because he had that alien quality to him where he just didn't understand things. He ripped stuffing out of his mattress to bring it to Thanksgiving dinner and all this kind of stuff. But I just thought he was kind of boring this season. There was nothing to him, he just cut about and he said wise things and he was always very calm, and it was just boring. There was very little drama there. Even the conversations he had with Kara were kind of grown up and, less emotionally charged. So you had the bit where Monel says to her, I have to tell you about something about Imra. And she's just like, nah, I don't need to hear this. This is like a personal issue. Just get away. It's karaoke night. Piss off. I don't want to hear it. And that's like a very mature and reasonable reaction, and I think it's the right reaction. But other than that, you didn't really seem to have any difficulty. They were very kindred, they just the way they interacted. And obviously he teaches her cape tricks, which they milk for all it's worth.
They use in every fight scene after.
Yeah. These shower curtain capes that can wrap around stuff.
Yeah, because why reach over and grab someone's hand with a gun when you can get your cape to do it?
Well, they did some cool stuff with them. I liked the tandem flip round they did when they were fighting Rain that time. That was pretty cool. They were cool, but overused. It just felt like a crutch they were leaning on. And I wonder if Kara could have been using a cape trick in the finale instead of travelling through time. Feels like that's something she could have done. I don't know. It is an
time travel because time travel.
Yeah, it's an interesting new addition to her power set and her skill set, because it gives the cape a purpose, whereas it doesn't really have one before. Apart from it apparently aids with aerodynamics.
I did like that kind of explanation in season 1, where it's like, why do people wear capes? Oh, that's why they wear capes. Okay.
Yeah, but you see other people that can fly. For instance, when you had Non and Astra kicking about, they were flying about quite happily without a cape.
Very true.
So it's clearly not a problem. But yeah, they found a use for it. It's fine. I'd like to see Batman doing a cape trick. I mean, he probably does. He probably can. Maybe she could teach Superman if he ever shows up again.
Superman, at one point I was like, did Superman die between seasons? Yeah, there was very little mention up until the finale, where there was like a little background TV announcer going, and Superman has saved this.
Superman saves Madagascar.
Madagascar, that's it.
Yeah, it's like, oh, that's good to know. Cheers, Clark.
Yeah.
Thanks for still existing.
Man. Yeah. It was like, good to know you're still around, Clark. That would be good. She doesn't even get text from him anymore. He just leaves her to it. It's like, is the world ending, Kara? You know, it'd be nice to get a heads up here, you know.
Well, he's not even ever mentioned at points where he should be mentioned. You know, not quite there yet, but the thing that Kara discovers is kind of something that Clark should probably know about.
I do feel that if there was a visit being arranged to said place, that you would maybe invite your cousin. I'm just putting it out there. Yeah, I mean, as much as Monel would be welcome to tag along, it seems like something the cousin should go off and do.
Yeah. But we'll get to that shortly. Yeah. I was really impressed with Lena this season. I mean, I've always been impressed by her. I think she's really interesting. But they seem to be moving away from the she's evil, she might be evil type storytelling, which was really pissing me off because every week it was like, is she evil? No. Is she evil? No. Will she work with her mother? Nope. Will she work with this other villain? Nope. You know, it was just every week. It's like, right, I get it. She's a good person. You have to keep testing her like this.
Is she secretly plotting? No, got you again.
No, that's it. She's actually nice and wants to benefit everyone. So what they set up was a conflict where Lena is, we'll say in quotation marks, the villain, because her point of view is different to Kara's. But it's a reasonable point of view because they lean into the fact that she's very solitary. So she doesn't have a lot of friends. She doesn't have a lot of people that she considers close or trusts. So she just forges on and does stuff herself. So she discovers that Sam and Rain are one and the same because it's like, hang on, every time you mysteriously black out is when Rain shows up. It's almost like whenever Kara disappears and Supergirl appears. You know, no, those are two different things.
I do feel that those two deductions should have arrived around about the same time.
Yeah.
You know. Oh, and also your sister works at the super secret alien organization with. Yeah. I think
also your boyfriend was an alien prince.
Yeah, you know, there's a lot of things, and you work with James, who is Guardian, who's working with Supergirl. Oh, this is all making sense.
Hang on, but Wynn is your best friend, and he also works for this organisation. It's like, wow, it looks like the only person without ties to this organisation is you. Imagine that.
What a shocker!
Yeah, that's the conceit. Unless we adopt the Cat Grant philosophy. She already knows, she just doesn't let on. But again, that's a contrast to what we know about this kind of this tenuous relationship that happens. Because, so when Lena discovers that Sam is Rain, or that Rain is Sam, or that they're one and the same, whatever way you want to frame it, she locks her up in a lab and runs some tests, but it's for Sam's own good. And I understand why it's for Sam's own good. So Rain is dangerous, let's lock her up. I will solve this problem, and then we won't have Rain anymore. Problem solved. I don't see any reason to involve anyone else because I'm trying to help my friend. I don't want her secret coming out to anyone who doesn't need to know it. So Supergirl doesn't need to know this secret. The public don't need to know this secret. If I solve this problem, there will be no problem. Sam will continue her life and there'll be no more Rain. Everyone's happy. So her point of view is incredibly valid there. And then you have Kara coming in saying, why didn't you tell me? I had a right to know, blah, blah, blah. And then, so they argue about this. And it's a really interesting argument because it is the two sides of it. Kara feels like she should know about this because Rain is her enemy. She's trying to stop it, etc., etc. Lena is coming from a place of love and support, trying to help her friend. So... And I love the fact that when she's interrogated about it, she doesn't apologise. She's like, no, I'd do it again. Like, this is, as far as I'm concerned, it was the right thing to do. And then she does acknowledge that maybe if she'd shared the information, they could have helped come up with a solution together. But it just never occurs to her because she doesn't think about involving other people. And that's just the way she's wired. You know, she's wired to just not look for help.
Yeah, I mean, the person that she trusts the most is her. I mean, it definitely shows her as a very capable scientist in her own right. She comes up with a lot of deductions and solutions all on her own, which I think's great. like you say, I think it's brilliant that they've dropped the is she, isn't she evil angle in putting her more at odds on it's not a philosophical, a different.
It's more like an ideological.
Yes, it is. Yeah, there's sort of an ideological difference between her and Supergirl / Kara. I think is a better way of doing it rather than pitching them against each other in a fight. I think it's a lot better having this in the background. The fact that she is keeping secrets, but she doesn't really see keeping secrets as being a bad thing. It's more that she's sitting there going, well, no one needs to know this. I've got a right to hold whatever I want to hold or build whatever I want to build. You know, it's if it becomes an issue, then I can tell someone. Until it becomes an issue, I can keep it to myself.
Yeah. And then you had all the issues around, how are you keeping Rain at bay? Kryptonite. I didn't know you had kryptonite. And this is the part that starts to fall apart for me because Kara does seem to be she's very funny about kryptonite. Even though, by the way, there are killer Kryptonians like every year or so. So keeping a bit of kryptonite in the drawer, probably a good idea. You know, it's a good idea. I mean, you had Superman very funny about kryptonite last season. You know, where he was facing up against Jean for a little while, and he left with the kryptonite and hid it somewhere, I guess.
Yeah.
So there was that, but you've got the whole kryptonite thing, and you know, and they have this argument about Lena says there's like 1 million things on the planet that can kill her. She gets in a car every day, even though it can kill her, etc., etc. Which is a bit of a weird argument, but I don't understand why Kara is so like uptight about the existence of kryptonite on Earth at all.
I kind of feel it's one of those things, like you say, there is a Kryptonian villain that pops up every 5 minutes. Why would you not want there to be some kryptonite in the hands of the DEO, for example? You know, I get the argument that, well, that just means that someone can steal it from the DEO and then it's out and about in the wilds, but at the same time, Lena's not suggesting sort of lining the streets with kryptonite.
Yeah.
She's saying it's here as a last resort if it needs to be used. And I see her side of the argument as well. You know, I can walk out and I can get stabbed, shot, you know, hit by a bus, whatever. You know, the world is full of dangers for me. You've got one danger out there, you know. Yeah.
Other than the super strong aliens that try to kill her every week. But you know, that's a separate issue. Yeah, so like Kara's mortality extends to more than kryptonite in this show, though. As I said, there are aliens that can handle her. You know, Rain is a very physical threat that can kill her. You know, Purity was that. Pestilence presumably also did that. The fact that she loses her powers once a week for a period of time. There's all sorts of things that that can harm her and can kill her, and so the fact that she's getting hung up on this one thing, it just seems to be there to manufacture conflict. But I did find it quite interesting that Lena was very much said to Supergirl, Kara as Supergirl, like, we're not friends. I'm working with you because it suits my interests at this point. When this crisis is over, we'll go our separate ways and I'll do whatever I want. I don't have to report to you. I don't owe you anything. I will make my own kryptonite if I want because I think it's necessary to defend us as a species and all this stuff. And then Kara's trying to maintain the friendship because she has the friendship in her civilian identity. And I love that Lena's like, why are you so fixated on us being friends? We're not friends. And to really stick the knife in, you had that, I guess, the one conversation that she has with civilian Kara, like pretty much this season, or this half of the season, was the whole Supergirl is manipulative, she lied to me, she turned my friends against me, where she gets James to break into the vault. I thought that was cold, and I can understand why she did it, but it's also not a forgivable action. And it's like, I have people manipulating me all the time, this is how my mother treated me, so yeah, don't like Supergirl that much. And Kara's like, oh crap, I didn't realise, and now I can't tell Lena who I really am because she doesn't like the other half of me. We have a problem here.
I keep coming round to that. I thought this season Lena was going to find out. I definitely thought she was going to find out this season. But it seems that she just hasn't put two and two together yet, I presume. It's that conversation I thought was one of the stronger bits, because you were seeing, it's one of those things that if you could put on another face and hear what other people think of you and hear their conversation about you, how would you act differently to them and your other guys? And like you say, she's trying to repair the relationship from both sides, but she can't. It just won't work. You know, Supergirl has betrayed Lena's trust, which takes a lot to earn in the first place. You know, it's a working relationship now. Yeah. It's not a friendship at all.
Yeah. And it never was, I suppose. I mean, she had no reason to be Supergirl's friend. It was just...
True.
Yeah, there was a bit of a convenience to it. I think Supergirl was helpful in certain ways, but then... And I found it interesting that she very specifically referenced, this is what my mother does to me. You know, I can never trust anyone who treats me like that. That's it. You know, they've got one chance and that's it. And then I guess that's maybe something Kara didn't realise about herself, or she didn't realise that that's the kind of damage she was doing. But it doesn't make it forgivable. You know, she should have realised that. And that kind of mistrust is a failing on her part rather than Lena's, because... she doesn't trust Lena to have kryptonite, and she doesn't trust her when she says that she doesn't have kryptonite. However, she was lying. But then, it's her lie to tell. You know, as far as she's concerned, she doesn't owe it to anyone. But I thought that Kara using James to break into the lab, saying to James, break into the lab for me, when she knew about the connection that James and Lena had, or have, is low. You know, you shouldn't be doing that, pitting people against each other like that.
No, that was a bit manipulative and pushing him into a situation he shouldn't have been put in the first place.
Yeah.
And I did think it was a good bit of character development that James didn't.
Yeah.
It was actually a bit of genuine action there that I thought was like, oh, actually, that's quite neat that he's done that. I thought they were going to go down the obvious line of he does break in and then keeps it from Lena, but I quite like the opposite way where he fessed up. Yeah.
Well, he admits to being Guardian, he admits to all this, and it's great. And I mean, that conversation between Kara and Lena was really interesting. I think they missed a trick by not showing them together again later on, because there is a lot to play with there. You know, the awkwardness that could develop in that friendship. Kara has to sit there and pretend like everything's okay when she knows that Lena doesn't really like a big part of her.
Yeah, they didn't really do the friendship angle as much in the second half of the season as they did in the first.
Yeah.
Which I think would have made the betrayal a little bit bigger, or a little bit more of a relationship impact.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you with that, actually. I think that would have been neater to see.
Well, now that I think about it, wouldn't it be quite cool if, because Kara and Sam are good friends as well, wouldn't it be quite funny if Lena said to Kara, I have to show you something, and takes her down to the lab, and it's like, oh yeah, Sam has got some issues and I'm trying to like solve them, and then she has to kind of pretend she doesn't know about it as Supergirl, because how would she know about it as Supergirl? Yeah. You know, they could have like really done stuff with that.
It would have been good to have that kind of conflict, actually, of, you know, oh, do you want me to tell Supergirl? No, don't tell her.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, so I've got to pretend that I don't know when I do, and yeah.
These are the more interesting things about dual identity as well. Because, I mean, you can have oh, Kara, where were you? You just missed all the action. Or you can have the Smallville repetitious, Clark, you're never around when I need you. I'm really pissed off that you keep leaving, and at these opportune moments. And that's something that happens in Spider-Man comics all the time. It's like, Peter Parker's never around. You're so unreliable. We can't depend on you. And that's, to a point, that works, but it's played out and it's boring. But when you have like two distinct identities, such as Superman and Clark Kent, or Supergirl and Kara, you can have these stories where the two personalities are played against each other, and the two sides have different relationships with different people. So you've got this Lena doesn't trust Supergirl but still trusts Kara thing. And that almost justifies why she can't see the fact that her best friend's face is looking You know, she's looking at the eyes of her best friend, because it's like she could never imagine Kara doing that to her.
Yeah, I suppose so, but
I'll admit it's reaching, but it
when this betrayal, or when this guys is finally given up, which has got to happen at some point, and it would be a lot better coming from Kara than it would be Lena finally putting, 2 and 2 very obvious things next to each other going, look. Yeah.
Well, what Kara would have to do is make a decision in order to save their friendship, to come clean. Just, accept the consequences. And I guess the natural fallout of that is Lena is like, I can't believe you did this to me. And, have you any idea how much you upset me with your actions? The way you treated me, the way you put James against me. I can't believe that my friend would do this to me. And then you have a bit of angst around that for a few episodes as they don't like each other or whatever. Or maybe it is, maybe it does just drive that permanent wedge, go back to Smallville. That was about the dissolving of Clark Kent and Lex Luthor's friendship. And it just gets to that point where Clark has made one too many mistakes around Lex, and Lex no longer trusts him, and Clark's not there to help Lex be a better person at a given point, so he essentially goes down the route to villainy. I think that would be played out if it happened here, and I still think that Lena is a fundamentally good person, but if she loses that tether to normality through her friends, if she casts Kara out of her life, maybe the relationship with James doesn't work out for whatever reason, and she is just truly on her own. What does Lena do then? What is her life like? Does she just become colder, more detached? Not evil as such, but more oppositional.
Well, there's a lot that can be done with villains that think they're the hero.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that Lena should become a villain, but I just I think as an oppositional force to Team Supergirl. So you have contrived, I suppose you would have a budget contrived, we need to save the world together, but this is just a business arrangement. So you would still have that, but you would maybe have, I don't know, since Lena runs the newspaper, makes it difficult for Kara at work, I don't know, all sorts of stuff. I don't know how petty she would be, to be honest. She doesn't seem like the type, but
Kara's never at work anyway, so it won't make much of an impact.
And I'm pretty sure she left, actually, in her farewell montage. I'm pretty sure she just quit, so I don't know. We'll get onto that though. Stay tuned, listeners. So the Sam and Lena thing was interesting. Just Sam wanting to heal herself because of Ruby. And I liked the impact that had on Ruby, where she didn't know for a while. People were lying to her. She was hidden in a mansion. An invisible mansion that had the Superman 1 trials. The machine guns, the ice.
The fire, yeah.
The fire, yeah. That was cool. Just lifted out of Superman, the movie. It was great. And then Ruby eventually finds out. But the rapport she builds with Alex is quite interesting. I like the little bits of parenting lessons that Alex was getting as she was going on. She was in love with the romance of just having a child. It's I want to have a child, I want to raise this child, be a positive influence, but she starts to realise, oh wait, they're their own person. So Ruby isn't always going to do what I say. I'm not always going to be able to say the right thing to make her feel better about herself. I can't just win her over with gifts, all that stuff. And still by the end, she still wants to be a mother. So she sees all these difficulties and she's like, well, I didn't really consider those, but I'll take them,
But she gets through them, and like you say, she does learn lessons through it as well. I did like Lexi's not seeable from space, hidden castle, fortress dungeon. It was very neat. I did like that.
Although
I like that Lex has still got all this stuff lying around.
Yeah, why
every once in a while, it's oh yeah, my brother totally has one of them somewhere.
Although Alex was really stupid, A, leaving her phone out, and apparently B, not having a lock code of some sort, so that Ruby could just pick it up and phone her mother or whatever. That's ridiculously stupid levels of contrivance.
That is a bit for a government agent.
Yeah, Alex should know better than that.
Just leave my phone unlocked.
I'll just leave my phone on this table and unlocked. What an idiot. It's one of these bizarre things where it's like, okay, we need the story to happen, so let's just have this character take leave of their senses. Forget everything they've learned. Forget everything they should know.
It happens on both sides, though. It happens on villain side. It happens on the good guys team. Is like one or the other needs to slip up in order for things to happen. You need to leave the human alive in the corner and assume they're dead so they can activate the distress beacon.
Yeah.
You need to allow Ruby to have that phone call in order to pinpoint the location of the base. Yeah.
And the thing about Ruby and the effect it had on her, I mean, I liked the way they did it, but I think that I assumed that the whole linchpin to defeating Rain would involve Ruby in some way, and it didn't. It's we need to drink the right water. That's what solved the problem. Apparently, it's it's the Last Crusade ending again, isn't it? Drink from the right cup.
You chose wisely. Yes.
You chose. Yeah, your 50-50 chance. It's like no. To make yourself stronger, you need to drink this rancid water. Apparently,
yeah. There was elements of that came true though. That Ruby was an influence on Sam and helped her sort of break through every once in a while. She was still exerting control, and it was her bond to Ruby that really pulled her out every once in a while. But it wasn't the one thing that cured it. It was the sort of magic mix that Lena came up with that did it.
Well, when they separated Sam and Rain, I thought it was a stupid idea anyway, especially when they were still connected. As one gets weaker, the other gets stronger. It's like, that's dumb, but whatever. And they really missed a trick on how to, on having Sam face down her dark side, the physical representation of her darker self. And they did it a little bit, but it wasn't a huge plot point. You just had Sam run up to Rain with a sword and then stab her. And then not do that because the timeline changed.
Yeah, she gets to punch her about in the Dark Valley space instead.
Yeah.
She doesn't get her moment with the sword.
No. It's a bit dumb. And then that's just kind of resolved. Apparently Odette Annabelle won't be back as a full-time cast member next season. Which makes sense, because what's left? What can she do now, That
is true. It's like, what... And that's where these programmes struggle sometimes, is they have a one-season arc for a particular character, and they don't get rid of them at the end. They kind of limp along from another season, and you're like, I don't know why you're still here. What's going on? I think if they have them dropping in every once in a while to show, this character still exists, I in the same way that I don't quite understand how Clark has been completely erased in this season in comparison to the last. I was not expecting him in every episode or in a high number of episodes, but I did expect a couple of appearances.
Yeah.
Especially when you're getting into the grand stakes towards the end of the season.
Yeah. I
think it's like, I'll call on who's on my team here. I've got the sort of Legion, and I've got John and the people at the DEO. Why don't you call your cousin? No, he'll be too busy anyway. And I'll take Guardian. It's like, why don't you call Clark? No, I'm taking Guardian. It's like, okay, fair enough.
No, I'm sure Clark has his own stuff going on.
Yeah, he's busy. He's doing like things and stuff, and I think he's changed his phone. I don't have his new number. It's and it's a bit awkward. I know I could like fly over there and pretty much call him right now, but no, let's just leave him. He doesn't exist at the moment.
Yeah, and I don't want it to be a crutch that they're leaning on, but I suppose that's the problem when you cast a particular actor to play Superman in your TV show. I can't imagine Tyler Hoechlin can afford to just wait by the phone for every time they want him to turn up for an episode. It's something that would have to be worked around his schedule and all this kind of stuff. So, like, I'm guessing for last season when they hired him, it was like, right, we want you to do the first 2 episodes of the season, and maybe the last one.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
they've got the potential, if they know exactly what they're aiming for, that they can film it sort of out of sequence for that particular element.
Yeah.
But I'd still think it's a bit strange to just suddenly have the character not even doing what they did in season 1 with the sort of text convo styley stuff.
Yeah.
And very limited mentions as well.
Or even just mention them here and there.
So yeah, I think if they do that with Sam next season, I think it would be a bit of a shame. I think they need to give her a little bit of face time to show that she's still there.
Yeah.
And then, like just slowly edge her out after that.
Although I seem to recall that Cat Grant was supposed to turn up more than once. They'd mentioned that Callista Flockhart was signed up for a few episodes here and there, and she would appear throughout the season, but that didn't happen, which is a shame.
I don't think she even picked up on the TV a couple of times, did she? She didn't even do sort of TV styly, like interview appearances or something.
Wasn't after the first couple of episodes anyway, that's for sure. But I don't know, I feel like Sam could almost be, I don't know what she knows about journalism, but what does James know about journalism other than everything, apparently, because being a freelance photographer means that you can be a CEO of a multinational media corporation. Who knew? But I don't know. I feel like Sam could be in that spot, the Catco spot, if she knows that kind of stuff. Maybe that's where they should have put her in the first place. I don't know, which would have really stepped on James's toes because he was put in that position. But Lena was kicking about there anyway, so I don't know. Maybe it's just for the best that she just fades off. I mean, they have a good character there. I think the interaction that exists between Ruby and Sam was really good. But yeah, you can't really build she's just here and spends time with her daughter and that's all she does. The characters do need to have a place in the show. And that's something the other shows tend to struggle with. It's like, why is this guy here? Why are these people here? They don't have a purpose. And now Sam doesn't, unless they were able to come up with one, which apparently they weren't. Same with Monel. They're getting rid of him because he has no purpose anymore.
Yeah, that's true. It's sort of once they've served their narrative role. But yeah, like I say, I think that's something they've got to be... Yeah, I think they should actually... It's one of those things, it's something that I complain about so often in other shows, is that these characters, once their plots run out, are still around. I think sort of dribble them through the season and then take them out, I think is probably the best way. A bit like they did with Manel this season. He wasn't in it as heavy because he was meant to be sort of time switching and keeping back for a bit, and so they kind of did that with him, and then they're dropping him. I think they can do the same with Sam in the next one.
Yeah, I tend to call that characters linger for longer than they're useful. The Dawn effect. In Buffy, in season 5, there is a sister introduced that she didn't have before for magical reasons. Basically, she's a mystical thing that Buffy has to protect, and the easiest way to do that is to make it appear like her sister that she didn't have, because then she'll have that natural protective tendency. It makes sense in that respect. But then season 5 ends, that plot's resolved, and Dawn is still there, but doesn't have anything to do. So for 2 seasons, she's just there and doesn't do anything, and that's what tends to happen with some of these characters. It just really doesn't work, but they're doing the right thing, I think. Keeping the cast list a bit down, a bit lower than it was before, so we've got more time to explore the people that are here, in theory.
Yeah, definitely, definitely.
What did you think of Marin and his illness, his space Alzheimer's? Or space dementia? Space dementia.
Do you know what? I think it was actually handled pretty well. I feel it wasn't... At some points it wasn't quite given the impact that it should have been, but I think the development of his and John's relationship through the season has been really, really good. Him getting to know his father and then finding out he's got this illness, and then trying to care for him but not limit him at the same time, especially when he's trying to sort of limit the danger to others. In that slow deterioration, I think it was handled pretty well, to be honest.
It was introduced a little bit late, I think. I think there was no problem with the execution of it. I think that was really well done. So you had the bit where Alex was noticing the lapses in memory, and she was like, "I'm not getting involved. This is something for you to talk about with your father. It's nothing to do with me." And so they had that approach, and then so what you had the episode where Jean finds out, and then the next episode is where it's escalated to the point that it's just, the psychic waves or whatever is affecting other people, which is an interesting metaphor for these kinds of illnesses, because these kinds of illnesses do impact the people around you. There's nobody that's unaffected, so everyone close to you is sucked in some way, because of what they have to do to deal with it. So the fact that he's projecting his emotions out into other people and he's causing a riot is a really extreme metaphor for that, but it's a really effective one because it is that very simple, all right, okay, yeah, I see what they're getting at here sort of idea. So they and then you have these very frank and adult conversations about where Alex talks about her grandmother suffering from the same thing and says that it wasn't pretty, but her car keys had to be taken off her. They just had to be done. She was a danger to other people. She was a danger to herself, danger to other people, and then it doesn't eventually. It's very quickly transcends to the point where he's, where he's like, I've got this moment of clarity now. That means I'm about to die. We need to do this ritual. And I feel like if there was like a pocket of episodes between these major events, it would have felt more natural. So if you had a couple of episodes of Marin just being a bit scatterbrained and a bit forgetful, and then you had a couple of episodes of John knowing about it and helping him deal with it, and then you do the psionic attack type scenario, and then you have another couple of episodes, and then you have the whole, oh look, you seem a lot better these days, and he's like, yep, it's a moment of clarity, the time is coming soon. Then another couple of episodes, and they do that really interesting ritual they did.
Yeah, I do think there could have been a bit more of a gap in between certain elements of it. I do think you're not too wrong there. I think they did all the right elements.
Yeah.
I don't think they had room to breathe. And also, I think where there were gaps, it was like there is absolutely nothing going on here gap.
Yeah.
So it wasn't even referenced. It would just, we're not going to cover that in this episode whatsoever. So yeah, I agree to elements of that.
Yeah. But the resolution of it was great. I thought that the memory transference thing was really good. It was really intense, and it was the whole idea of you're going to experience great emotional pain because I've experienced great emotional pain, but it's all part of me, and it's the fact that Jean is willing to take it because he is absorbing the essence of his father, and he's willing to put up with it. Also, the fact that the ritual is incomplete is interesting as well, because there's a bit of a tragedy there. Parts of his dad are gone forever, and that can't be fixed, But that final memory that he shares, the one that's, here's the start of our culture. Here's the sacred scrolls being handed to the first Green Martian or whatever it is. And that's like cultural identity being passed down. Jean holds the keys to the kingdom. He is the final Green Martian that will know this. And there's that, that's an ending as well. Marin's sacrifice where he becomes one with the earth kind of thing to save it. As that final gesture of protection to save his son's home was really, really well done as well.
I did like that sort of final sacrifice. He wasn't just sort of blinking out. He did that sacrifice at the end. I'm not going to go back to our TV science section and question it at all. I'll just say it was a very sort of noble act in the end, which I thought was handled well.
And Jean's decision to step back from the DEO because he's learned that there's more to life through this experience is interesting as well. I don't know if David Harewood's back next season. I haven't seen anything that's written either way. But the way I was, where he puts his hat on and he walks into the crowd, I'm wondering if they'll do a bit more of a comic accurate Martian Manhunter, where he's certainly at some point in the comic he's like a private detective.
All right.
I mean, I don't know how that fits into the overall tapestry of this show, but I'd be happy for a Jean Jones subplot where he's helping people on a smaller scale, by investigating stuff or whatever. I think I'd be chuffed with that. It'd be a different direction for him. And then you've got director Danvers, who gets to be a mother as well as the boss of the DEO. I think that's a good way to move her. But although equally, if it's just Jean saying, you know what, I'm going to go off and enjoy my retirement or whatever, then fine. You know, if the character served his purpose, he served his purpose, you know?
That's true. I don't quite get the... Well, if you're head of the DEO, you get to sit around in a big office and it means you can have kids. You'll be fine. I always think it's like, it would be the opposite. It's like you're about to be put in charge of this big agency. You're going to be even busier than you've ever been before.
Well, I wonder if that will be the
is not the time, you know.
Alex dividing her time, finding it difficult to divide her time. But she's not out in the field anymore, so she just has to deal with the bi-weekly attacks that happen on the headquarters.
Yeah, it's like, oh, well, at least you'd be nice and safe here at the place that is, like, still recovering after the very recent attack, yeah.
That Kryptonian attack where there was about 3 people in the building, it seems. There was no one there. Yeah, but it was... So that was a very frank and interesting portrayal of that kind of dementia and what people have to do to deal with it and stuff. I mean, I can't say for certain. I've never experienced it, thankfully. You know, I've never had to deal with that in my family or even by proxy other people's families, kind of thing. It's not something I've ever been close to, but I think if it had been an insensitive portrayal, then I'd know about it on Twitter or something. You know, people would rag against it, but it certainly ticked the right boxes for me in terms of what I feel like it should have been. No,
I think it was a fair portrayal. It appeared that way to me. I've had very, very limited experience with sort of dementia and Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
But yeah, it seemed like a fair portrayal in what they can get across in a TV show of this sort. Mm-hmm. It's not a realistic drama by any means, but I think they did a very good job of what they did.
Yeah. Now we can get onto the thing we've been teasing for the last quite a while. So, Kara discovers a Kryptonian city that's just flying around space, concealed under a dome, with a large swath of the population of Krypton, which includes her mother, childhood friends, and just people that she knows on Krypton. Or people that she knew on Krypton, just flying out there in space.
Thank God it was her local neighbourhood and it wasn't like the neighbourhood over where she didn't know anyone, isn't it?
Yeah. But you would think this is a big deal. But you wouldn't get that impression if you watched the episodes. It's so weird. It's just so weird how detached that was. You know, Kara sees her mother again, someone she believed was dead. She only interacted with this kind of interactive hologram for years. Well, actually only for 2 years, because she only got that when the DEO was a thing. But the impact is so diminished. You know, it's like, oh, hi, Mum. It's good to see you again. And, you know, you don't get that, and you don't get that connection. You don't get that, the elation that she should be feeling. And Melissa Benoist is always so good at these sorts of things. I just don't understand why there was no impact.
It did seem a bit lacking. And part of me, because it was being downplayed so much and the way Mon-El was sort of shiftily looking around at everything, I was expecting it to be, oh, this is a fake hologram or an illusion, or they're all pretending to be Kryptonian and it's actually something else, or it's, you know, I was never expecting it to be, oh no, this is actually a part of Krypton. I was waiting for, like, the foil to come down and for it to turn out to be something else going on, you know, some mind device that's making them think that they've seen a Kryptonian city, you know. So, yeah, when it was revealed it truly was, I'm sitting there going, oh, all right, I thought this would have been a greater impact.
Yeah.
And then when the sort of questions are being asked, oh, what are you doing? Where have you been? What's Earth like? Or, oh, you've gotten so big. Never once do they ask, what about your cousin that we sent you there to protect, which was the whole point of us sending you in the first place. I see you haven't brought him with you. Is he dead? How did you do? You know. So, yeah, I thought that was a bit weird, in my opinion.
I think part of the problem with it is the recasting of Allura as well, because so used to Laura Benanti in the role in season 1, and the recast her with Erica Durance, who's not a bad actress. She's still my favourite Lois Lane, hands down. Will not be beaten anytime soon, as far as I'm concerned. But the connection feels a bit false between them. You know, like she was only ever interacting with the hologram before this point, other than flashbacks and stuff, which was never her. It was always some other actor playing Kara in those flashbacks or whatever. But I just found it hard to associate the Erica Durance version of Allura with the original version that we had, and I just don't understand the recasting, other than possibly the actor just didn't want to do it anymore for whatever reason. But it made it difficult, and I think that there was no rapport with them, and their interactions just felt so flat as well. And I think a part of it has to do with some really dreadful dialogue as well. Like, what they were given was just, you know, this isn't natural at all. Especially when Kara's addressing... Well, when she's just talking to her mum, she just sounds so formal. Which is just not her. She's not a formal person. So I found it just impossible to connect with it.
It did seem like she was a completely different person when she went back. Now, I don't know if they were doing that on purpose to make it like, oh, well, she's gone back to her youth when, you know, this is the way her parents raised her, to be this, you know, speak very formally, you know, we're part of the sort of high council thing, so you can't be speaking out of turn, or... But, yeah, I just felt there was a bit of something missing there as well. There was also some rather ropey city CGI graphics as well, where it was... I
wasn't fussed about that.
I do get that they're getting with a budget, but some of it was very, very ropey. You know, it just seems like it's a very big development to put in that show that there is actually a chunk of Krypton floating about out there. So it's now like a permanent resource of information should they need it. You know, unless they're now going to unwrite it or just pretend it doesn't exist in future, you know. It's like, do you know what would be really helpful to ask about this particular thing that we're going up against at the moment? An actual Kryptonian, you know, a scientist, a proper Kryptonian scientist. Okay, tell you what, why don't we go and ask the proper Kryptonian scientists? Nope, let's ignore them. Let's pretend they don't exist. You know, it seems like a very strange development to put in for a couple of episodes. And like I say, I constantly thought it was going to be discovered that, oh, it's not really Krypton. Yeah. And then I thought, well, maybe it's been a very last-minute addition that they went, okay, we need a way to finish this off, and we're not too sure. We've got several options. What one are we going with? We're going with floating bit of Krypton. Okay, that'll do. And they've put it in. But the way it was integrated into the season finale in the last sort of 3 episodes or so suggests to me that it wasn't that wasn't the case. Yeah. So it seems like a bit of a misstep in my opinion. But, you know, otherwise I suppose you're having to come up with another reason for 3 Kryptonians to be floating about somewhere, manipulating rain into the appropriate position and manipulating the Earth followers into the right position.
Well, you had that with the Kryptonian spirits or whatever. You know, it could have just, there's a Kryptonian ghost inside the fortress, I don't know. Like, or this hologram is sentient. I don't know, there's a million ways around it. And I don't necessarily have an issue with a chunk of Krypton being out there, because we've always had well, I mean, maybe you don't know this as well, but like the bottle city of Kandor has been a fixture in the comics for a long, long time. You know, the whole idea that Clark has this bottle city, you know, the shrunken bottle city in the fortress, and he can visit whenever he wants. The only drawback is he has to shrink and then, you know, and be essentially human while he's living there. So, you know, he can grow a beard while he's there and whatever, but so he can always visit, but ultimately he's fine. But I don't think that any members of his family are in Kandor, it's just his people. So he does have that disconnect to it. But the thing is, the fact that not only are her people out there, her mother is out there. And that's huge. You know, that devalues her motivation to some degree. Because the thing about Kara and her struggles with her identity is she's a very, very lonely person. You know, she has Alex, and they have a great relationship. She calls her adoptive father and mother by their first names, which always suggested to me that she didn't quite identify them as mum and dad. And it makes sense because when she travelled from Krypton, she was not old, but old enough. So she had a relationship with her parents, whereas Clark doesn't. So Jonathan and Martha Kent, mum and dad, fine. But with Kara, it's Jeremiah and Eliza. And she makes a point of calling them that. So even though she's grateful for everything that's happened since they took her in, and Alex is her sister, you know, they are sisters, no questions asked about that. She is still quite lonely. She doesn't have a people. She's not human. She doesn't belong to humanity. She's not Kryptonian. Well, she is Kryptonian, but she has no family to speak of in that respect. But now she does. So, like... And I think they should have done more with that. There was the episode where, you know, in the first 5 or 10 minutes, they defeat Rain and Kara makes a decision to move back to Argo City. And it's like, whoa. Okay, maybe defeat Rain in the first 10 minutes. But then you spend the rest of the episode, Kara wrestles with the decision to leave.
I did think the decision to leave was sort of carried out very quickly. And then I also felt that you needed almost like a massive time jump of Kara has been living in the city for quite a while, and then this happens, rather than she pretty much arrives and then it all goes wrong from that point. You know, it sort of things take a turn very, very quickly. Yeah, Serena steals the ship and all that stuff, and
well,
the assassination attempts start happening from like the moment she arrives. Someone like throws planks at them. Yeah, it's like very, you know, very film. And then it's the whole, oh, you're just seeing things. That person wouldn't possibly try and kill you. You know, they run the village shop. It's like, no. And
they do try and play with the concept of, no, you're used to being in danger on Earth. It's not like that here. And you could have had, like, if it had been, she'd been living there a couple of months, she starts off being suspicious and then becomes less suspicious because it is more idyllic there. But I did say in my review that, like, the existence of Serena and the fact that she was acting against the legitimate government and stuff, it's like the veneer of, the darkness below the veneer of perfection. And I always like those sorts of ideas in those types of societies. It's where the darkness is pushed so far down, but it is still there and it's just waiting to come out. And you will always have dissenting opinions. It doesn't matter how in harmony people are living.
Yeah, I did like the fact that there was sort of this underground movement and things in the city, but like I say, I just think it should have taken a bit of time rather than it just happening all within a matter of minutes, you know, of arriving pretty much. Yeah. It's like, oh, your best friend is still here and this plant still exists and your dad's lab and things are still here. And someone's trying to kill you already. It kind of felt a bit too quick. Really,
there was even little things like you shouldn't go home again. You know, that old story trope that you can't go home again. I think it's called, whatever it is. It's the idea that when you go home as an adult, you realise that things have changed or the things that you took for granted are different or whatever. So, like her childhood friend. So it's like, oh look, you're married with 2 kids, but you're getting really, really upset about this gazebo that's facing the wrong way. Apparently. And, Kryptonians have gazebos the same as we do on Earth. So, it's like all the cussing that they do in Krypton. You know, the TV show, not the planet. Also the planet, I suppose. But it's like, no. They're aliens. They wouldn't have gazebos. Or they wouldn't say, damn. You know, that kind of stuff. They would have something else. And
they would say frack, of course.
Well, potentially, yeah. But they could have come up with like an equivalent of a gazebo without calling it a gazebo. But anyway, that's a very small point. But the whole point about that interaction is Kara's supposed to realise, Well, she grew up to be a bit of a psycho, didn't she? Like, I remember when she was a child and we got along really well. And now she cares about trivial crap like this. I don't know. Like there was all that potential, and you could have again had an entire episode of her acclimating to Krypton. But I think, or acclimating to Argo City, which is a former part of Krypton. But I think certainly the decision is something she should have wrestled with for longer.
I think sort of abandoning ship on Earth should have been a longer decision. It didn't seem like it was a holiday plan. It seemed like this is it for good plan.
Well, I've had 2 going away parties. That's the good thing about having a dual identity.
I've had 2 different going away parties. Yeah, I just feel like it should have been a longer wrestle with a decision. And then when she went away, it should have been a bigger time jump to her adjusting, acclimatising. The DEO and the people over there acclimatising to the fact that Supergirl isn't at the beck and call. Would have been another angle to play on a bit more.
Yeah.
You know, we don't have our invulnerable woman to call on at any moment. You know, we've got to rely on the resources that we have. While
all
also
we have now is Superman.
all we have now available is Superman, but we don't talk about him. So all we have available is not very much, because Monell's now left. We've got Guardian. We've got Guardian on speed dial,
and he's playing basketball.
Yeah, he's busy. He's out at the moment. He's doing his day job. So, and we also decided at this point that we were going to go down the non-lethal weapon route. So, what you've got is squirt guns and shields.
That gun control debate was ridiculous. And the reason it's ridiculous is because they forgot what debate they were trying to have at some halfway point. So, at the beginning, it was about the civilians shouldn't have military-grade hunting rifles. I think that argument makes itself. Yeah. Right? The whole people carrying around a gun for their own protection, that's a very different debate. So people carrying around a small handgun because they feel like they deserve to be protected in some way is... I wouldn't say I personally agree with it. I think it's... I think if everyone's armed, then you have problems there, but in the context of the show, that wasn't the debate they tried to have. They tried to have the military-grade hunting rifles are excessive. So, yes, they definitely are. That's pretty self-evident. And the fact that James was arguing that point, fairly self-evident. But then Lena was like, well, I carry a gun. And it's like, I can understand why she carries a gun, because she's routinely attacked by aliens and other horrible, horrible things.
Yeah, it's a sort of different edge to the debate, isn't it?
Yeah. And then they turned it into... the government shouldn't have weapons.
Yeah.
You know, these people that are trained to use them shouldn't have them, apparently. And again, there is a debate there as well. Should the army or the military have weapons around civilians? Potentially not. But at the same time, they fight some pretty horrendous alien threats every week. And the fact that Jean came round to that, right? I'm disarming it. I'm disarming us all. That's it. No more guns. If you're not happy with that, you can piss off. I'll help you get another job, but I don't want you here if you want lethal weapons. Wynn's going to come up with some non-lethal stuff. Fine. It's like, what? I thought you already had some non-lethal stuff. It's just like, know when the lethal stuff needs to come out, surely. Like, there's a judgment call to be made on that one. But
well, it's like the difference between your armed response unit and your standard officer with a taser and a baton, isn't it? It's like you... I get the argument they were trying to have, but it seemed very, very weird that they went for sort of almost total disarmament, considering the threats that they normally face.
Yeah.
As well, it isn't like they're normally going up against just a very peeved off drunk guy. They're normally going up against a very peeved big, like, alien.
Well, the very next week, the Kryptonians attack, and what does Alex use? A kryptonite bullet. So it's, I'm surprised that no one was like, it'd be really nice if we had some lethal weaponry in the building.
Like some sarky guy in the corner going, oh, great week to give up the guns.
Yeah, I couldn't have done this next week, you know, but... so it was very strange. So the argument was almost threefold. And then, of course, it ends with Jean talking him down and this weird gun-toting maniac not pulling the trigger. So, because it has to end with that, because this is a show about hope. You have to hope that everyone can be redeemed, and not everyone's such a bad guy, and whatever. But your gun control argument was very muddled. So
it was a bit, but the outcome seemed a bit weird for the government agency point of view. Having the debate on television isn't necessarily a bad thing, but like you say, it was muddled slightly, so I think the overall message might have been lost in there somewhere.
Like, Arrow did a better job with it when they did their very special gun control episode. Way back in season 5.
So I'm trying to remember what episode that was now.
I'll leave you to figure that out.
I will do my research.
Yeah, that's it. So... but I thought it was funny, the debate that Lena and James had, where it's like, I can't believe you're for the holding of weapons, and Lena just basically says, well, I've got my opinion and you've got yours, and there's no point in us discussing it anymore. And that was the end of it. It's just, we disagree, and that's it. So,
Let's move along.
So I guess we're not having that conversation. Yeah, it's weird, but their gun control stuff, very, very strange. But going back to the Argo City thing, I think you're right in the whole... Clark should have been involved in this. Even if it was just as soon as Kara gets back, before she decides to leave, you see her just picking up a phone and going, Clark, you won't believe what I've just found.
Yeah, I think it needed some form of conversation.
Yeah.
To be having there, or, I've spoken to Clark, he's going to visit such and such, or he's been to see... whatever. Just throw it in there. It just seems very random for it not to be mentioned whatsoever.
Well, I mean, even if you don't want to show Clark, but I hate this. Well, I hate it when shows don't just tell you stuff and don't show you stuff. But in this case, if Clark had, if Kara had said to her mother, "Oh, did Clark visit?" and she'd be like, "Yeah, I can't believe he's not a baby anymore," and all this stuff. They could have just had that and like. Because it is a weird resource to have. Your aunt's still alive, by the way. And then she's on Earth for a bit and she decides to leave and will never speak of me again, apparently. Or maybe it's just implied that she'll be able to go back and forth whenever she feels like it. I don't know. The funniest thing is, every time she goes to Argo City, she'll age a little bit. So incrementally, she'll just keep getting a little bit older. So that could explain why she gets about a year older every year. Yeah, I was on Argo City for about a year, or long enough to visibly age or whatever. So they can get around that, actually. Impressive, but I don't understand why the Kryptonians want to terraform Earth into New Krypton when it seems to be much more attractive just to move there as you are.
Yeah, you can move to Earth as it is just now, and you have superpowers, and you barely age, and it's awesome. Or you can terraform it so you don't have superpowers and you age naturally. It's like,
although the terraforming makes no sense because it doesn't change the fact that there's a yellow sun in the system.
Yeah, also doesn't seem to impact them when their city seems pretty Earth-ish.
Yeah, I think that's because that magic rock is mimicking the Kryptonian atmosphere or something. I don't know, it was kind of weak. But I don't know what the plan was. Is the plan to drift through space until that rock stops protecting them and they all die? I don't know.
Did they have a way of steering the rock? Like, we're heading towards our sun. Okay, everyone stand to the left.
Yeah, I want everybody just to push in the same direction. And then,
everyone have baked beans and hold your backside against the shield for the next few minutes.
That'd be funny. Except it'd be ridiculous.
It would be, but you're wanting to see that short on TV now, aren't you?
It would certainly make the show harder to take seriously.
Everyone go to this particular part of town and jump up and down until we sort of move around the way.
Yeah.
I don't think that's how travel in space works, but in my head it is.
Yeah. I was actually fairly certain that at least Allura would end up dying in the finale, except she didn't. Well, she did, but then she didn't. She didn't.
I thought... when that scene happens, I was like, oh, well, this is a different way of it finishing off. Oh, they've killed off this character. Looks like they've killed off a lot of people doing all this. And it was like, okay, we're just going to backtrack on all that right now and solve this, yeah.
I think as soon as Mon-El died, I was like, this will be undone.
It was a bit like too many getting hit all at once. As she was going down into the pit, she was just rotating around, taking out everyone.
Yeah, and then there was the whole, I've lost what I stand for, or I've forgotten what I stand for. It's like, huh? And that was my reaction. I was like, what? What do you mean by that? I don't get it. She hasn't abandoned what she stands for. She's just failed. It happens. You know, you can't win them all. Although I can understand her, like, completely against it because so many people have just died in front of her. And Melissa Benoist does a really good job of that whole shell shock thing, and then her decision to travel through time is much like the one in the first Superman movie, where she just does it without really considering the consequences.
Yeah, there's no long-term consequences thought about. It's just, right, I'm going to go in and I'm going to fix this.
Yeah. I can't rotate the Earth on its axis, because that's dumb, so I'll wear this ring and fly into this weird temporal distortion that's kicking about.
Yeah, find me the distortion and I will...
Well, it turns out it's just above where I am. That's cool. That was lucky.
Yeah, fly straight up. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank God for that.
Fine. And then we'll travel back in time 5 minutes, and apparently I'll be inside my body at the time.
Yeah, that I didn't quite understand. Yeah. So when you fly back yourself, you just jump into your own body in your timeline again.
Well,
so
there's almost precedent for that. When in The Flash, if Barry only travelled back in time a day, he would replace himself. Seems as if it was more than a day, he wouldn't. I don't know. The rules are a bit confusing there. But I'm surprised that no one mentioned it. Oh, by the way, remember when your friend Barry did this?
That was a very bad idea.
Yeah. Remember those long discussions you had about Flashpoint and when you were in the other universe?
Well, the good news is that we can discuss that when we record our time travel podcast in the future, which is available in your feed now, in the past.
And there's another time I have to put it in the show notes.
Yep.
Self-promotion. So yeah, the time travel bit was a bit weak. I quite like the idea of the two Karas at the end of the season, though. There's your consequence. I don't know if she created a time remnant or not. I guess it'll all come out in the wash next season. They've reported that they're going to do some kind of adaptation of Superman Red Sun. If you don't know what that is, it's an alternate reality story where Kal-El landed in Russia instead of Midwestern America. So he's raised in Russia, and he's got the hammer and sickle in his crest and stuff. So she lands in Siberia, or appears in Siberia. So I guess she'll have no memory, and she'll be, I don't know, co-opted by some Russian organisation or the government. I don't know. But if they're doing Red Sun, then there'll be some kind of Russian thing to it. And it'll be interesting to see how those values translate to an oppositional force. So it could still be that she has a moral code, but it's not quite the same as Kara's. It's a bit colder. I don't know.
Well, she's from Siberia, so it'll be very chilly. Yeah. She'd
be at home, though. Krypton's quite a cold planet in some iterations. Fortress of Solitude in the Arctic, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And you don't want to put the central heating on, otherwise it'll melt.
That's it, yeah. So that could be interesting. And, I mean, I think I've said many times on this podcast how fond I am of Melissa Benoist. So having two of them, no bad thing as far as I'm concerned.
Do you think both of them will have a restraining order on you, or just the original one that still has a restraining order on you?
I think it'll take a little while for the second one.
Right, okay.
I've got a window of time here where she doesn't know me, so I'll strike while the iron is Siberian cold. I'm not that much of a pervert. If I ever get to interview her, I would be most glad. I imagine she's lovely.
I'm still waiting for the David Hasselhoff interview that we requested ages ago. It's
and
not
Ryan
happened
Reynolds
yet.
hosting
And Ryan Reynolds hosting, yeah.
It's like, Ryan,
you've not...
the 100th podcast is coming up. Come on, man. You need to get involved. You need to get involved here.
Yeah. 100th podcast, Ryan. Come on, man.
Throw us a bone. I mean,
you can do episode 101 if you don't want the pressure of doing the 100th.
Yeah, that's it. You can. I mean, you're happy with people photoshopping you into prom photos, but not want to host our podcast. What gives, Ryan? So the Red Sun thing brings us on naturally next season. I think we've kind of talked about that with Wynn stepping down to a recurring role. So he'll kind of show up here and there for little bits and pieces. Brainy on the team. Be fun. Should be fun. No Monel. Potentially Jean Jones as a detective. Alex as a parent / Director, James. Oh, James as Guardian outed to the public. Will he get arrested? Will he lose his job? Will he be struggling with this whole the fact that people know who he is?
I think bring on the lawsuit, the Guardian lawsuit, so we can get another crime drama as part of... I think it's going to be litigation.
We could be arrested for vigilante justice.
Yeah, again, we could have another vigilante on trial.
Yeah.
I think there's got to be one per year, isn't there, a vigilante trial? Or at least 2 or 3 now.
And then it'll be season 3 of Black Lightning where he's on trial. And they'll chuck it into Legends at some point. Someone will be on trial.
Oh, there'll be some sort of time court, won't there? Surely there's some sort of like temporal court of justice for changing the timeline or whatever, and that's where the Legends will get pulled in.
So have you got any hopes or dreams or things for season 4?
No, I think you've covered it, really. Like I said at the beginning, this for me has been a bit of a mixed bag. It's not been appointment viewing for me. It's not been sort of sitting there in my queue at the very top of the list. It's something that I've had to sort of catch up on in fits and starts. I hope to be surprised and for them to pick up something that really grabs me from the off. They have sort of teased clone / duplicate / other timeline / whatever Kara in here, which seems interesting. They've put different characters up against each other. You've got Lena developing her strange device thing, whoever she's been talking to, and you've got little bits like that are on the background, but yeah, I don't know what I'm hoping for, really.
Yeah, me neither. I mean, I've already said what I think will happen, or what I hope will happen. The one I really want is Detective John Jones. Private investigator. Shape-shifting private investigator. In fact, just give me that spin-off. I'd watch it.
Yeah, the spin-off would be good. Like a couple of episode spin-off, like a little solo standalone 3-parter.
They could do the Arrowverse spin-off spectacular. Like they did in The Simpsons, and it's like, and some old friends might just pop by to say hello.
It'd be good. Do you know what? I think that you could make a series of spin-offs. You know what I mean? So they take up the space of a series, but it's just like 3 episodes of this and 2 episodes of that, and a one-off of, this character and that character do this kind of thing.
They could do. I'm not sure they will, but...
I don't think they will, but, it's one of those things where you're like, wouldn't it be good to just go off and spend 3 episodes focusing on this particular character doing this thing?
Yeah.
Not your main crew, but your... some of the side people that are not given as much to do, that you could really go to town on a few episodes of a little standalone thing for them.
Yeah, it could work. I don't know. Just need to wait and see for next season, which I'm there for. I guess I'm not as weak as the last few episodes were. I wasn't as angry, for want of a better word, as I was when I was suffering through Flash and continuing to suffer through it.
Poor Flash gets knocked on like every podcast now. It's like even ones it's got nothing to do with.
Well, it has something to do with this.
It does have something to do with this.
There's actually one thing I meant to mention. It's not really a next season thing, or it kind of is. It's something they should keep doing. So what you had a couple of episodes of like they just started off with the Supergirl cast dicking about. The karaoke scene was just brilliant. And this is something the other shows don't really do. You never see Team Flash kicking back and just having fun. They're always we're in Star Labs and we're talking about DeVoe again. This is all we talk about. We don't do anything outside of work, but
you occasionally get them on the sofa eating pizza, and that's about it.
Yeah, but in Supergirl they had the karaoke night, they had charades. It was great, and it was good fun. Obviously, we know that Melissa Benoist can sing, and she definitely puts the Kara in karaoke.
Did you just line that all up for that one gag?
Well, I had to get that in somewhere. It was a caption of a picture on the review as well. So there we go. I think it's a clever pun. Aaron would be disgusted. So I'll make sure that he's aware that I've made it at some point.
Just send him the clip of the pun. He doesn't need to listen to the whole podcast. We'll just send him a clip of the pun that we put in.
Yeah. So I think they should do more of that. Just have them being friends and doing stuff together.
I think it's definitely something that makes it more of a family that you've got on screen rather than a team that you get from the other shows. It's like they all seem like a lot more, the relationships seem a lot more solid. And
there's a narrative purpose for it as well, because Brainy, they could be just acclimating him to the ways of the world. You know, so that's fine. They could do that. It's not a problem. I think it's something they should do more of, or certainly as much of. You know, just stop making it all business. Start. You know, they can feel human, even though most of them aren't at this point. But you know, they'll feel quote unquote human. Just kind of very quickly, I'm trying to think of some of the more notable moments. Some of the notable action sequences for me was versus a toy T-Rex, where Kara almost became a life-size action figure, which was really bizarre. It's like, nah, it shouldn't be a threat, but it is, apparently. But the toy T-Rex. I also loved the Legion of Superheroes making their debut to fight Rain with playing Bon Jovi from the PA system, because because Imra had been told stories of Tommy and Gina from Living on a Prayer, and she thought it was some kind of historic text or something like that. It was like this legend that had been passed down, but it was just a Bon Jovi song. I loved that, and it was just such a cool sequence. It reminded me of the Baby One More Time, I think it was.
Yes, when she arrived on Mars to Baby One More Time in the car. Yeah,
but they fully committed to it this time. They actually had the soundtrack play through most of the action sequence, if not all of it. It wasn't all of it, definitely wasn't, but a good chunk of it. Just fun. It's creative and fun.
Yeah, that very short sort of face-off with the... I was going to call them the Legion of Doom for a second.
Yeah, well, that's in Legends, but yeah.
That was Legends. I'm sitting there, I'm getting it all muddled in my head, but you had them trying to take down the three of them all at once.
That was a cool sequence.
That was kind of quite a cool sort of fight, a good sort of coordinated fight that you got in there. There's been a few little bits and pieces. There's not been tons that have sort of really jumped out at me. You've kind of stolen my thunder with the one that they are becoming a life-size action hero, sort of sealed up in the box. I thought was quite a neat thing to do.
Reminded me of the Collector from The Simpsons.
I didn't think of that actually, but yeah. No, very good. But yeah, there was a few little good ones sort of scattered through. I think a lot of the fight choreography and things that they do in these shows isn't bad at all.
Yeah.
You know, it's very rare that they wrong step in that department.
I like the one in the final episode, actually, the sort of quick damage control one. Using freeze breath on a giant tidal wave and things like that. It's like, you're clear, kid, let's blow this thing and go home. I assume that's some film reference. It's like, we never showed you Star Wars? What?
I did like that. And do you know, the thing is that in recent, well, especially this season actually, you've not really seen her sort of averting many natural disasters or anything.
No.
As a lot of it has been damage control on rain or pestilence and such, where, you know, in the previous ones you were sort of getting her trying to not take down a tidal wave, but, you know, stop flooding or save people from sort of natural disasters and bits.
Or just general, like, helpfulness.
Yes.
You know, putting out fires, stopping people from getting mugged and stuff like that. So, yeah, there's a bit less of that. I'm just glad she got over funk at the start of the season, though.
Yes.
That was pissing me off.
That was, that character should not be depressed.
No.
it does not suit her.
No, this is the happy one. Yeah, don't do that. No more angst.
Don't take the happy character away. No.
Yeah. So on that, I think we should wrap up. My summary is, season 3 was alright. Is it the strongest season? I don't know. I think it's much of a muchness. All 3 seasons have had their weaknesses. Season 1 was problematic because the show didn't know what it wanted to be. Season 2 became directionless after a while. And then Season 3 moved away from character-driven plot lines to plot-driven plot lines, which was less effective. Far less effective. Because there's no impact, there's no emotion, there's no weight to anything that's going on. So I think all 3 seasons have had problems. The show is still struggling to find an identity. Is it a show about someone living a double life? Is it a show about Supergirl just becoming a symbol for humanity? Is the Kara Danvers double life thing part of it anymore? Should it be part of it? What is going on? Season 4, I think, needs to get back to that. Needs to get back to, here's what this show is about. Here's Kara Danvers. Here's her life. Here's how it splits out. And do more with that. I mean, season 1 was at its strongest when Catco was a normal, a heavy fixture. But that's largely because of Cat Grant. But season 2 moved away from that. Season 3 has moved so far away from it that whenever she turns up at work, I'm like, how are people not wondering where you are? It's the same happens in The Flash until he got fired. Yeah. But it's like, you're supposed to be at work every day, apparently.
It's the bit that you've got to give them breathing room for, but you're always like, yeah, surely someone at work would be going, you do know, boss, that she's like never in. Oh no, she's like working from home today, but she's not written an article in months. No, she's working on a long story. She'll be back in, we promise.
Yeah, and they need to find more balance there. Like, if she does have a civilian identity, a civilian job, then let it be part of it. If you want to reference the New Adventures of Superman, then fine, I'll reference the New Adventures of Superman. But what that show was about was the Superman side and the Clark Kent side would marry up so that Superman would stop something and then Clark Kent would write an article about it. And that's kind of, well, not exactly that, but along those lines. Like have the 2 sides of her have a purpose.
Yeah, so Spider-Man, Peter Parker is very good at getting pictures of Spider-Man, for example.
Yeah.
Work it along those lines. The other development that I forgot to mention earlier on, which was like a random development that popped up in the last couple of episodes, was Girl in the Office turns out to be very good at science randomly all of a sudden.
Eve Teschmacher.
There we go. I didn't pick up on the name. It's just random girl from the office that I didn't.
Ditzy assistant, yeah.
Ditzy assistant turns out to know science good.
Well, I think she'll be Lena's, not sidekick, but...
of some sort is going to be in there maybe to find out what she's working on, and then it'll leak out from there, potentially. I don't know. But
if Lena's going to be working on her own on stuff that she's not telling anyone else about, then she will need someone to bounce off, and having someone more regular to bounce off makes sense.
I just found it a very strange character for them to randomly pick and go, actually, she knows physics.
I guess it's just someone who has a recurring contract, and there's no reason not to.
Yeah, we already have this person, so ta-da.
Yeah, fair enough. Do you have anything else before we end?
No, you shook that random morsel loose, and I think that's about it for me.
Cool. I don't have anything else either. So, Chris, thanks for being here.
You're welcome.
And I will thank myself for being here because I'm thanked.
I'll thank you as well. Thank you, Craig.
That was our discussion of Supergirl Season 3. Thanks to YouTuber Nsteds1117 for the supplied music. If you like what you heard, then hit that subscribe button on iTunes, YouTube, or any major podcasting app. iTunes users, don't forget to leave us a star rating. If you have any feedback on our Kneel Before Rise Against feature, this episode, or anything else, then you can reach us on Facebook or Twitter under Kneel Before Blog, or you can leave us a comment on kneelbeforeblog.co.uk. As always, we hope you'll join us for the next Kneel Before Pod.